You are listening to Be the Love, transcending through the shadows into a higher state of consciousness. We are souls on the journey, opening up the conversation to heal, awaken, and connect ourselves and the planet to a higher vibration of love frequency. It starts with you. Everything you need is within you. This is your time. I am Stacy Musial.
And I am Sam Fernandez, and we are your co-hosts at Be the Love podcast. Thank you for tuning in and ascending with us. Hop on board the Ascension Bus.
This is Adrienne Elise of the Supernova Soul Tribe.
This is Nicholas David Mann.
This is Dr. Brent Satterfield of Inner World Movement, author of Bringing Heaven Home.
Hi, this is Dana Parker with Inner World Movement.
Hi, my name's Steve Nabel. Here I am with Stacy and Sam on Be the Love podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Be the Love, transcending through the shadows. I am Stacy Musial.
And I am Sam Fernandez.
And we are your co-hosts and souls on the journey. And thank you so much for tuning in this week. And if you've enjoyed listening to our show, we would be absolutely so grateful for a 5-star written review on iTunes. Reviews really help the show become more visible and spread the word to others. And if it feels safe for you, I'd like to just begin to invite you to get centered with us. I'd like to begin by inviting you to take a beautiful cleansing breath in through your nose and out through your mouth, releasing anything that is keeping you from being present. And take another deep breath in through your nose, breathing in calm, peaceful, loving energy, and breathing out anything you are ready to release. And take one more breath in through your nose, breathing in light and love for yourself, and breathing out that light and love and sending it to all of humanity, remembering that you always have your breath to come back to. Today we have Dr. Alison J.K. Dr. Alison has secrets no one else uses to upgrade, inspire, and disrupt old paradigms within her community and the collective. She's an award-winning #1 international best-selling author and the founder of the Vibrational UPgrade System. She is an experienced subtle energies practitioner and natural healer with a holistic approach towards helping others thrive in mind, body, and spirit. This is reinforced by her 10 years in Asia studying subtle energies and ancient wisdom. With 20 years working in and teaching yoga, meditation, energy medicine, MindBody Fitness, longevity, and holistic health with a specialized focus on the Chakra System, Dr. Alison brings a unique perspective that facilitates massive change. Dr. Alison's mission is to support the next higher evolution of the collective and create change for the health of this planet and those who are ready to unleash every part of the magic within them. So thank you so much for being here today with us, Dr. Alison.
Yeah, it's my honor. I'm excited to see where we go. Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. It's such a pleasure. And so let's just tell us a little bit about your background, your journey, and what led you to this work.
I've always kind of been aware of a lot of loving support all around me. And to ground that into an easier thing to understand, I grew up walking through the woods next to our house with my older brother, and he would jump on the tree limbs and that were already broken or dead, and he would break them further, just the kind of boyish stuff. And I would be behind him, like tuning into the cloves on the ground and the little elementals and the creek and the dragonflies and the trees, and just feeling a part of everything and just totally connected and supported. And then in my teens, I started to write in a journal and really started to cultivate a connection with a higher voice. And we could say it's my higher self, really helped cultivate my intuition and listening to that voice, staying connected to that, which I felt all around me. And then went into college as a psych major. Mom had suggested that. My mom at like age 12, she was like, you have really natural understanding of people, Alison. She considered being a psychologist. And it kind of hit home. Mom's really intuitive. So I was like, okay. So I did it. And 3 semesters in, I was mildly horrified by how little I was being shown how do we be the most thriving, happiest versions of ourselves. So I left that major, and fast forwarding some time, I eventually picked up some modality. I first picked up meditation because I was a successful political organizer in campaigns over in California, and I needed to learn how to deal with the stress. So a book fell off its shelf in San Francisco, stopping right at my feet, about meditation. So from there, that started. And I had already been into yoga in college, and doing some Native American medicine wheel work, and really looking at things holistically, always sensing the spirit needing to be involved when we talk about the mind and the body. And so I eventually picked up my first energy medicine modality. And while I was teaching in the classroom, English, and was teaching ADD and ADH labeled boys, meditation, and I took them outside and showed them, because I was already doing Qigong, but I wasn't yet a formal teacher, showed them how to connect with the trees and connect to something bigger than themselves using some Qigong moves, and taught meditation to adults in the local community, and ran energy medicine and health and holistic health and wellness sessions alongside classroom teaching. Was getting great results for my clients and wanted to get even better results. So basically put that question to my guidance and higher self in the universe: how do I get even better results for my clients? I actually said, how do I get even more robust results for my clients? Was as I had my hands over her sacral and solar plexus. I was led to move to Asia so I went into the international school system. Some synchronicities brought that in. And meanwhile, I also increased my net cash flow, because that was a part of the goal. I had already lived in places overseas prior, and had this sense of, oh my God, this is tight budget wise. Where is the sense of adventure? I don't want to live in this cage for decades. Not okay. So that came along at the same timing as me with my hands over that one client asking, how do I get even more robust results? So I found out about the international school system, went and did what I had to do, eventually accepted the job I was offered in Asia, became a administrator at that point, as well as a classroom teacher, and ran the energy medicine sessions alongside the classroom teaching, and began to explore and study all around. And then came back after a decade to the States with my mission to, it's my first book, What If There's Nothing Wrong? So I wrote it started as my dissertation my last year over there in Asia, and really coming back aware that, man, if we knew about the subtle energy system and consciousness in the West, there would be so much less suffering. And then it also became, after a while, what I saw, I am about professionalizing the field of energy medicine. So there you have it. Is that good?
Wow,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. That sounds like quite the journey, and so much in there, I'm sure, to like unpack, right?
I cut out a lot too. That's the briefest full version I've done for a while.
So tell us a little bit about like that, the subtle energies, and what how that led you to create your system, your vibrational upgrade system, and how it's been helping you awaken spiritually, and how it's helping your clients awaken spiritually.
Okay. I'm a little bit different, and I don't know how to say this, but I trust that your listeners and you will receive it in the way it's meant. I was always awake spiritually, and I had to learn how to allow that to come through even more. I'm special. I'm different. I have these innate capacities that I have had to learn how to allow space for and cultivate. So I've awakened those more and more, but I've always had this really strong guidance. So like in my early 20s, late teens, a couple of times I didn't listen, and I sucked the chaos that ensued. And so I learned early on, you're going to be led to do things that are different, and you got to follow through and listen to the guidance, take action based on it. So I don't know that I've just progressively allowed for that light, and using yogic principles. Definitely. I got my yoga teacher training in India while I was there. I do tend to approach it from a Buddhist and yogic perspective. So it's a combination how I help others between energy medicine, doing clearings and activations on what I believe on your show you call the shadow. And then I couple that with my meditation and yoga teacher background with applied mindfulness, so that once I've run the clearings and activations on people, we don't just stop there. I have, as a person, I'm also a certified personal trainer. And one of the specialty certifications I have is as a behavioral change specialist. So if you bring that with my background in meditation and how new neurological pathways get formed, I find that just running clearings and activations alone in energy medicine, and whether it's the light clearing out the chakra column or it's verbal clearings on something being shown that is holding you back at an unconscious and subconscious level, there's that. But then in order for so you'll have, after that clearing, you'll have a new thought possibly, because the space has been created, the mind body connection has been cut. And so from that new thought, you can make new choices. But to then have the courage to make those new choices rather than following the momentum the ego mind got used to, that applied mindfulness is needed for the consistent redirect into the new behavior where you're actually making those new choices and following through, creating a new life based on new behaviors. So I'm totally understanding spiritual awakening, the times that we're in right now. So here's a little bit. When I came back around 2011, I was back here for like a year, and I went through the worst culture shock I have been in. No matter where I went, it was when I came back to the States. It was interesting. Landing back in here and working with people. Like I remember one client saying to me, I just have to figure it out. And I was at her toes doing a central nervous system rebalancing. So I was on my knees, kneeling down at her toes, holding my fingers the way that I would. And I looked up at her when she said, I just need to figure it out, because she was downloading to me basically an update. Mm-hmm. And I was taken like so many paces backwards to access the part of me that remembers what it's like to be the kind of person that says, I just have to figure it out. Remembering, this is what it's like in America. Mm-hmm. So when I say I went through the worst, it was phenomenal. So I'm back about a year and a half, and Voice America approached me to do a radio show based on the Mayan galactic alignment, December 21st, 2012. I wasn't doing anything in my business publicly out there with that. I was taking some VIP clients to the Mayan ruins in the Yucatan, but I didn't know why they approached me, but I said, okay, give me 48 hours, listen to my guidance. It was a huge yes. So I said yes. And for once a week for 2.5 years, I was interviewing specialists and scientists about the Mayan galactic alignment and what it meant, that December 21st, 2012 date, as well as the scientists who I quoted in my first book, What If There's Nothing Wrong, who had developed measurement of subtle energy and of consciousness and of the changes that happen from meditation practices. So I actually became a specialist on a cruise to Chichen Itza for that day. I was the energy medicine professional and the meditation and yoga teacher on a cruise, and we were at Chichen Itza. We got special permission to be with a Mayan shaman that day. Wow. I'd been there the year before with a client barefoot. Ground wasn't that riveting, but that day the ground was like shooting lightning up through my feet, and it was such a big deal. There were TV cameras around from all around the world. People told me they saw me as far away as Poland. So what I understand is that started a 20-year window. Now, I had clients coming to me in 2011 with stuff collapsing in their lives, job loss, health issue, divorce, like crises coalescing. So some of the earlier awakeners were having this happen like around 2010, 2011. But 2012 really marked a 20-year window from 2012 to 2032. I'm smiling because I don't know if you can see the crystals. We were talking about crystals beforehand. And so I have this pig dragon that that was excavated out of China.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
He's cool. So, yeah, the 20-year window, it's like the first half is done. We've seen a crumbling, everything that's been out of alignment, or most of the places where institutions and the way we organize society and within ourselves and within our own relationships, where stuff has been out of alignment. So we've seen the crumbling, some of the indications, people protesting in the streets like Chile and Moscow, and countries where there usually aren't protests and voices speaking up. The Me Too movement, the Black Lives Matter, all of this is bringing to the surface the shadow on earth and within each of us and collectively. So that's like the first half. And now we've kind of turned the corner and we're in construction time, or co-creative time, where we're creating the new golden era with our choices. And so here we are.
So I'm wondering, what brings to mind for me is the different timelines that we've been said to be on. And so we've, said we're shifting over to this higher vibrational, this 5D consciousness timeline. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about maybe that piece of it, and how, what you've seen with that and how we are progressing with that.
I love how you made it look like the fifth dimension we're shifting over to something as if plugging into like 5G network. But it is kind of like that. I find like it's not anything bigger than all of a sudden, because of the changes you've been working on in your consciousness, you're able to perceive more subtly. That's 4D. Increasingly, then it's 5D. So it's right here. We don't have to go anywhere. It's the inner work that helps us be able to access it. So the ascension isn't leaving your body. As a personal trainer and a yoga teacher, I'm very much into like longevity nutrition and tonic elixir herbalism from the traditional Chinese and yogic cultures. I'm very much into the body. Like I want to know, how do we have the funnest, most thriving time as an adventure, this life in a body on planet Earth? So I don't use like the stuff to leave my body. I help people come out of the spiritual closet and not need to meditate to feel the unconditional love, not need to go out of their body to where they feel safe, connecting with the angels. But it's about coming down into the body, and from this positioning in a grounded way, create this new paradigm together.
I love that. I love what you said about, it's really about not leaving the body, because I think that is when we think about ascension, in my mind, it's like, we're going up somewhere, but you're right. Cause it's, it is like, we all have access to that. We don't have to go up anywhere. We can just increase our own vibration, and by healing the shadow. So I'm wondering, can you talk a little bit more about that, and then your work with the Mayans and how they see it, and where we're at with that?
Yeah, so let me start backwards. So flash forward out of the 2012 time when I was there, and I've been back almost every year. I take myself there for the equinox. I'm in the Northern Hemisphere, I'm a fall equinox baby. It's when my birthday is. So fast forward to 2019, I'm in Teotihuacan, the Mayan/Aztecian ruins outside of Mexico City. And we hired a local native guide. And this is after me already getting educated about the nature of our times. And I nonetheless asked him, what do you perceive as the difference between the old era, that 26,000 year era we just ended, and the new one that is now come into play? And he said, the old one was about destruction, and the new one is about construction. So con, that prefix, his English teacher, means with. Yeah, in yoga, the Sanskrit word yoga means to yoke with the divine. When you're sitting there nodding your beautiful head there, Stacy, you have the solar plexus mandala for the solar plexus chakra. That is the one about manifesting. And so that's at the upper belly, that's at the digestive tract. So we have to be in our bodies to be able to functionally marry the material and the spiritual, because that's one of everything's coming into balance, the masculine, the feminine within ourselves, not just genders, sociopolitically or within relationships. So is the material with the spiritual. So I find like a lot of spiritual people, I've already talked about that, they tend to go up and out. And then the material people may still be in a stage of calling anything non-material woo-woo, which is outdated. So part of the rebalancing is the spiritual with the material. So I really am happy to have this opportunity to dispel the myth of it's all about going up and out. It's all about like meditations and guided visualizations and leaving your body. It's all about changing, going through the clearings and activations that correlate with certain chakras throughout the body, so that you then have more of this light or vital life force energy or ki or chi or prana circulating throughout your system. So your whole body's vibration goes higher, but you're in it, and you're then able to access the multi dimensions.
Mhm. So as we all have been moving, I mean, over the last, 8 years or so, right? Since 8 or 9 years, we've been really a lot of the shadows work has been coming up. I know a lot of people. I'm a psychotherapist by trade, and so I work with people a lot just on their own healing journey, and I'm just seeing certain patterns over the years as well. And so, but then I see it on the collective, and so in this big collective, like you mentioned, all these other things, politically and whatnot. And so if we're moving, it sounds like we've moved out of the destruction phase, and in the construction phase, wondering, what do we need to know to do to help with that construction? Like, what are we working toward to construct as a collective and as an individual?
I love what you just said. So the clearing, the purging, that people, I'm not meaning to make someone feel bad in the audience because they're still clearing.
Sure. We all
You're
have
done
our
with
work
that by
to
now.
do. We all have work to do. Absolutely. But yeah, I just kind of moving through. Yeah.
No, please. It's me discerning and distinguishing between certain
Sure.
aspects. And I want to actually do this because it gets to a certain point where it's not about work. You get so free. It actually, I'll never forget this. And on a summit interview, like around 2012, 2013, a woman asked me, do you ever just get there? Do you ever get done with clearing the negativity? And at that stage, I said to her, there's always room to grow, because when I do a clearing, it's the next thing, the other part of it, the half of it is an activation. So those chakras, like that third chakra, or even the orange one that now you're sitting back, the sacral chakra, every chakra has a right to it. So the sacral chakra is your right to feel what you feel. The third chakra, the solar plexus, yellow one, is your right to desire what you desire. So in answering your question, when I was like 2016, I was starting to see a pattern like you just described with your patients, where everybody's heart chakra and throat chakra were asking to be mingled in a way that I hadn't yet seen. So it seemed, I came to call it the co-creators channel. And I talk about this in my second book. So moving into this new era, it's really recognizing our power to create. And that comes from much of it, the throat chakra. It's about communication, but a whole nother level of it is the creativity, not arts and crafts, macrame, but the choice at a time, one choice at a time. I'm creating, you're creating, we're creating our own lives, our families' lives, and then the collective. So if we, at the sacral chakra level, the lower belly level, if we don't feel like we have the right to feel what we feel, even at the root chakra, tailbone, I don't have the right to be here. There's all sorts of compensatory behaviors that ensue in all clearings or shadow that I then have to see that I have to clear to help people land in their body after they've had activated for them. Yes, I have the right to be here. That could happen from some kind of symptom in the womb when mom and dad were worried about how they're going to afford to bring you up, or one of the parents didn't really want to be around, or there was any kind of neglect or abandonment or rejection, for example, that can imprint upon a child, a fetus, an embryo, all the way back to inception or conception. I don't have the right to be here because it's not being shown. So the sense unconsciously, energy is our first language. So the sense unconsciously is that gets wired in, I don't have the right to be here. So a person with that wiring may tend to be out of their body more, or may tend to eat to remind themselves of their body, or may tend to be a sex addict to be in their body more as a compensatory behavior. So the root chakra is your right to be here. The sacral, if I now feel like I have the right to be here, I don't mean to say only the chakras build upon each other. I don't mean to be conveying that they don't. You can have a great fifth chakra and a crappy second. So please don't think that you have to build up the tower. That's a common misconception. So I do better with feeling like I have the right to feel what I feel if I feel like I have the right to be here. And then if I feel like I have the right to feel what I feel, I can then acknowledge my desires. Now we're at the solar plexus. So if I feel like I have the right to desire what I desire intact, then I'm going to allow myself to manifest. I'm going to allow myself to choose. I'm going to allow myself to create. based on my desires, which is what we're meant to be doing now. Our heart chakra, our intuition, it's not like a big imagery that comes in. If our heart gets lighter about a choice, that's our intuition saying, yes, do that. It is that simple. It's not that complex. So allowing ourselves one step at a time, instead of expecting a plan, a full strategy laid out in front of us, the how, letting ourselves balance the masculine and the feminine. So the yin is that heart upliftment about a certain choice presented to us. And the yang is, okay, do it, follow through. And then one step at a time, the universe, learning how to interpret the symbolism from the universe, the messages from the universe. Because as we're higher vibratory, we're emanating it out. We're also allowing ourselves to receive more of that support, and it'll come in. The higher vibration we are, the more synchronicities we have. The more we work with the synchronicities, the more messaging we get. So the more that we can act like a detective and kind of piece it together and make the next choice. Does that help?
Absolutely. And so I'm wondering, what is the way that someone could, continue to, work with their chakras and create that, move through the shadow work and continue to upgrade and essentially stay there? Are we meant to stay at that high vibration?
So do you mean like, am I meant to, when I travel, because I'm stepping out of my house on a first flight since all of COVID on Saturday. So do you mean I'm not meant to get annoyed about the way people behave in public right now? Because nobody knows how to behave right now. Is that what you mean? Like, I'm not.
No, because I recognize and believe, we all have a shadow work that we're working through, or there's emotions that are still coming up. I've seen it with a lot of different people. And so I want to, honor, like we have feelings and we're human and we need to like go through that and honor those feelings as they come up. Because I think there's a lot of messages in our culture that says don't feel, you shouldn't feel like that, or you shouldn't, and so we have to honor the humanness. But I'm wondering, as we're working through the shadow and we're, raising our vibration, like what's realistic for us to be in that vibratory state?
So it's acknowledging the potential for, wow, this is how it shows up for me. This morning, tech challenge, just dealt with it. Wasn't annoyed, didn't have a ruffle of a thought of damn or any of that catching kind of like frustration. Just dealt with it, just stayed in the flow. It's typical with me doing that traveling too. I mean, I've traveled a lot, as you guys have too. So nonetheless, you can still, from a high vibration, observe the potential for annoyance in a situation like I've given the example of, but not embody annoyance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you do hit a certain point where the choice making, with the clearings and activations, we've created so much more detachment. So if 10% of our frontal lobe, that's the last to develop, right? That's why teens are so rebellious,
Mm-hmm.
the monitoring of ourselves, that's the last thing. But it's also where we hear our thoughts from. And it's only 10% at most of the thoughts that we're actually having that we hear. The rest of it's in the back of the house consciousness, as I've come to call it, the subconscious and the unconscious, is what you're meaning by shadow. But I don't want it to sound like all of that's in the head. It's not, because of the chakra column, in each chakra having a certain theme to it, depending on that unconscious belief or shadow belief, it relates to the corresponding chakra. So blockages, so that's how physical health gets impacted, by not clearing yourself and having the vital life force energy. Listen to that, vital, that's life force energy. That's the translation of chi or prana or ki from Reiki. So by having more of the clearings done on you, more of this back of the house consciousness brought to the forefront, you're going to be able to make more conscious choices, as well as those clearings cut the mind-body connection or the automatic triggers. So you have more consciousness at your disposal in a moment to make a more conscious choice. So in that detachment, you can then have the ability to do what I just said, observe this potential here for annoyance, but not embody it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we work that detachment increasingly, we work that release of the back of the house consciousness increasingly, so that you actually have way more presence and way more consciousness at your disposal to make more conscious choices that are lighter, you have more consciousness. We can interchange here in this example only consciousness and energy. So the light and light and energy. So light has an intelligence of its own. When I'm training my vibrational upgrade system practitioners, it's a beautiful thing to be able to tell them, so that as they sit at the head of a client or they start a distant session and open up at the crown, you may see their knee twitch and they've come to you for chronic back pain, for example. And you wonder, and they're talking about pain at their knee when they haven't said anything to you about their knees, because the light has intelligence inherently of its own. God bless the divine. It sounds like a weird sentence to say, but like, thankfully, we're not responsible for that. The light has that innate intelligence. It knows, sorry, there's a little bit of lawn maintenance happening here, right outside my window. So the light knowing what to prioritize, we don't have to make that decision. We just have to allow the light in as a practitioner. That also, the more awakened consciousness we have here, the more light or consciousness we've freed up. That means also it implies that it's the more divinely guided our choices are going to be.
So is this something that, oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. It was just, so we're creating from our higher self more. And so then that's how we're going to create that higher. You use the word ascension. I'll use the word higher, because they both imply that, right? They're going north for those of you only listening to the audio and not video. So that means the new paradigm we create together, we co-create together, is going to naturally have a higher vibrational backdrop to it. They'll be healthier, more balanced, more divine choices. But this is our gift, right? We can muck up our lives and everybody's lives around us with our choice to be an asshole, excuse my language, or we can be beautiful beings and make those choices too. Free will, it's our one gift, right?
So what would you say with someone who struggles with trauma and they have a, hard time moving through that trauma? Is that something that is also upgrading as we're going through this? And how do they navigate through their traumatic experiences?
Trauma is interesting, isn't it? Yeah, it's a little bit of a minefield. One of the aspects I've noticed about trauma is that it has this ability to like repeat. So when I run a clearing, you'll hear it later on when we do it, free floating thoughts and traumas is grouped together, because what I see people do with trauma when they've been through trauma is, so the ego mind's given to us. The ego mind is what we talk about in meditation. It's the mind we're observing, the thinking mind, the monkey mind. And so we're given this nonetheless in Western psych training, as you likely know, Stacey, as protection, So when we approach the jungle, it's unknown, keep us protected from the lions, the tigers, and the bears, oh my, to keep us safe, right? It's in the adrenal cortex, the back of the brainstem, their wiring. And so it's to keep us safe, but it's in hyperdrive. And so when we have a trauma happen, in particular, that mechanism gets kicked into place. So let's say there's sexual abuse. That's a really common one. Let's say it's uncle. And let's say the 6-year-old girl ended up with the conclusion that because she wore that certain kind of nightie, she caused the sexual abuse. And because she smiled a lot, she caused the sexual abuse. So what will happen as an unconscious conclusion in order to keep her safe in the future is don't smile a lot and don't wear pretty things, or don't wear that kind of a nightie. It's very obvious, but I'm doing it for the teaching purpose, because the traumas aren't just the trauma. What I find more persnickety is the clearing of all the ensuing protective thoughts that are at an unconscious level. So when we're fielding a trauma, we can't even do it consciously. It goes right into the subconscious. So first is the clearing out of that event itself. And then there's the further work on the ensuing or free-floating thoughts for protection that I then takes longer to unravel. Traumas take longer than anything else, really. I mean, no, karma takes the longest. And I've spent years and tens of thousands of dollars learning how to clear karma. It is really tricky. Trauma is like 1 degree down from that. So there is a point, though, that you move beyond holding a trauma in your body. There is a point where I've seen it over and over and over again. It's kind of like you come into alignment and you come up for air, your head's above water. and you can live beyond the trauma. So that needs to be communicated, because I also see like there's people who, I'll never forget the story. A woman comes in to a luncheon and she sits down at the table and announces that she's an incest survivor to everybody. And they had not been, they're not an incest survivors workshop, weekend gathering, just a luncheon with general people. And so that living through your trauma, living from your trauma, making it your identity can happen a lot, especially with the more we repeat a story, it's locking energy. So energy at the subatomic level is a wave. Consistent repeated thinking or high emotionally charged thoughts like, I'll never do that again so I don't get raped again, locks down the wave into a particle, solidifying it into now becoming physicalized. So the more we repeat a story, the more we're reinforcing energetically, making it more dense and more substance. So living with the trauma, while I said what I said about how much it takes to clear it after karma, look at you can, it's not a big deal. And so I feel like we overemphasize trauma, possibly from the nature of the mind, looking for problems and something to fix in the West.
Yeah. And in my experience too, talk therapy has never been effective, especially healing trauma, because you're going into it, you're perpetuating the energy of it. And so it just makes it worse and tends to re-traumatize people. So I like to do more modalities that do focus on the energy and what's trapped in the body. And I do EMDR. And so that's
you have to free up trauma. And Stacey, I'm so grateful you said that. I didn't want to say it to you as a psychotherapist practicing, because that's one of the reasons I left the psych major, because I saw what talk therapy doing that, and I don't find it effective. In order to effectively clear trauma, you have to go beyond that talk therapy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about your process and helping people, like bringing in the light. It sounds like you do a lot of activations and clearings. Is this something that people can do on their own, or something that they need to come to you for, or one of your people you're training?
D, all of the above. I start out doing it on them, and then if it's a fit and they want to, then they can learn how to do it on themselves and then on others.
Okay, so tell us, how can we open up ourselves to increase that receptivity and the light and the power to create what we are truly desiring through that healing work?
So here's a concept that will be a good walk-away tool for your audience and y'all, if you don't already know it. The yin yang, right? So there's a qigong move that I do a lot to show the concept. I'm going to put the crystals down now. It's called pushing and pulling of the wave. So you step forward. I even describe this in a few of my books, and your palms are facing away from you. Your elbows are bent to your side. Your arms are, but they're out in front of you rather. And then I've stepped forward. Now I'm full extension forward, drop at the wrists. So my palms are now facing my body. And now I pull back, stepping and leaning more on that back foot. So when we're making things happen, when we're going for goals and targets, that's yang. This is yin, the pulling back, the stepping back. If we're all about stepping out and taking action and being a problem solver, which is considered a good thing and we value here, right? We leave no room for anything to come in. Just sheer energetics alone, we need to leave room to allow ourselves the space in front of our heart chakra, the key to receiving. We need to leave that spaciousness so that something can come in. And then there's activations to do to increase your receptivity, to increase your allowing, to even increase your magnetism, because the heart has 10 times more electro and magnetic activity. This isn't the right number of the brain. So the brain fires electrically all the time, central nervous system, but the heart has a magnetism component as well as the electricity to it, physically and metaphysically. And so that equates to more magnetism, the quality of magnetism, magnetizing to you what you desire is a really advanced skill after you've opened up to become more receptive and allowing yourself to receive. Then it gets to a point where you can use this as the heart chakra as a tool to pull towards you what it is you're desiring. And so the higher your vibration is, the more that will sing out. So perhaps like as you are getting ready to action something out or problem solve, you could ask yourself, what if I didn't step in here? And then see, maybe somebody else with even a better solution would come in. You would save yourself some energy and you'd be nurturing yourself a little bit. You'd be increasing your receiving just by making that different choice. And it gives space for others to step up.
So tell us a little bit more just about how your vibrational energy, the upgrade system, can assist someone with bringing that in and becoming their true authentic self. I know it's kind of a keyword, that people are using right now, but what does that mean, and how can we shift into that to bring that in?
I think that the whole thing about authenticity is because we're going through humanity's awakening times. And so people want to awaken to who they truly are. And implied in that, right, is no longer listening to the false self, the ego mind thoughts that we hear, So, I mean, even just implied from the concept of meditation, which is 5,000 years old, if they can teach a concept to observe our thoughts, that means we're not our thoughts. So it seems like what this is really about when people use the word ascension and shadow work, it seems like it's how to, his Buddhist and yogic terms, how to come out of letting your life be dictated by habitual patterns in the ego mind and allow for your higher self to come in more. So that yoking with the divine. So how can we do that? You're asking. I don't want to say that there is no quick fix, but there isn't. I mean, this is a whole bloody spiritual path or enlightenment path that yoga talks about, that people go into ashrams and caves for decades. So it's to really get free and live your life from this elevated perspective. There's time that needs to be invested, not a 5-minute video about listening to a singing bowl, balancing your 5th chakra. As much as I'd love to say that, but as much as I have to remain in integrity. So finding your authentic self, I don't even feel like it's finding. I feel like it's uncovering. It's like getting rid of the falseness. And so clearing out the shadow or clearing out the unconscious and subconscious locked down traumas, because if your uncle perpetuated sexual abuse on you, that's less about you and more about him. So clearing out where you've been at the impact of other people's choices, recognizing karma. Okay. I'm also different than other metaphysical teachers and leaders because I don't believe that I believe there's randomness. I don't believe that everything that shows up in our lives is because we have called it in somehow because of our vibration. There's at least 10% randomness, and it is just that you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's not that you were meant to have an accident or because you were angry. So, I mean, you could look at it like one of the metaphysical interpretations of what does it mean when I have a car accident? It's because you've been angry. Well, if you're angry, that means you're fueled by a pushing in the thoughts, and that means that you're not open and aware and observing. And so you might make a mistake that leads to an accident. So this idea of like being responsible for everything in our lives, it's a weight and it's not right. It's not accurate. Karma also kicks in at certain points in people's lives where it just is time for that. There's a word called samskaras in the yogic culture. And these are our basic, everybody has like 2-ish, some people through 3, lesson that our soul has chosen to evolve beyond in this lifetime. We've incarnated, it seems, in order to have our souls evolve beyond that old limitation. And so it's that same repeating behavior that you're working to evolve beyond. That is a samskara I'm talking about. And so it just comes time in someone's life that if you're not already proactively clearing and opening and upgrading yourself, then you're going to get a crisis to bring it in, to force you. And you could choose not to deal with, all of you listening to this are most likely choosing to look at yourselves, right? But there are people who are spinning out and they have to hit rock bottom. They may not choose to upgrade. They may not choose the higher path. So there's just I find so much misinformation, and I hate to talk like that about this field and use a term that's talked about in mainstream media about other aspects of life, but people have such false expectations, and then they slow themselves down, or they sabotage their own evolution and growth. I really would love for people to be more gentle with themselves. The nature of the ego mind is to be harsh and judgmental. And so, for example, if you look at somebody who you get triggered by, who's really critical of you, please know that inside their own head, it's 10 times that criticism level. That if somebody hasn't done much clearing work, we're projectors on top of a neck, just projecting our inner reality out onto the matrix, so to speak. So then that brings in the element of compassion as best as possible. No, but also the ability to have boundaries in a different way than it's usually used, in that you don't take on, you don't let it become a part. There's a Native American teaching, I love it, about having a basket. So you can picture a really cool woven, handcrafted basket in front of the belly. And when somebody has a thought, judgment, label, criticism about you, it's an arrow, because mental is arrow, air, and it lands in the basket in front of you. And you can consider whether to take it on, if it's helpful or not. And that may sound like, but then if I don't want to hear something negative about myself, I'll never take on anything anybody says. That's just ego mind noise. You know yourself. And more than likely, you're probably taking on more criticism rather than less, unless you're a narcissist. And then if you're a narcissist, you're not listening to the show.
I agree. I think
That's a good call.
Thanks, Sam.
Were you gonna say something, Sam?
Yeah, so I don't know, I've just been listening to this conversation and just kind of absorbing everything, but something that you just said, it was a very fresh perspective, I think, of spirituality as a whole. Because I know for me that if I'm feeling a certain way or something, and okay, well, what am I going to try meditation? Am I going to do chanting? Am I going to do breath work? Am I going to do drum work? What am I going to do? But by that time, it seems like that the ego mind has already taken over. Like, okay, I'm going to do A, B, C, or D, and I'm going to do them in this path, in this way, and I'm going to get this result from it. And like I said, for me, that's kind of how I operate spiritually, unless I just kind of let go.
There it is.
Right. So
Hold on a second, Sam.
Sure.
I want to
I just got burned. First time I've ever been burned before.
No, that's a shift. That's to indicate a shift, not a burn.
No, not a burn, just the sound of the horn. Burn, 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 burn. Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think, maybe it's more prominent in the Western world. But when yoga started to become mainstream, it became mainstream being advertised as a really good workout. And you might get some additional benefits mentally or spiritually, but the main thing that why you should do yoga is it's a really good workout. Or with meditation, you use meditation to quiet the mind, and for a long time I believed that, and I would get so frustrated when I just couldn't quiet the mind.
Louder.
Yeah, and it got louder, exactly. And then I learned that no, meditation is an observance of the mind. It's not a quieting of the mind, and once I learned that, it was like, oh my God. So yeah, I can sit here, observe the thoughts, and that's okay. I don't have to try to shut my brain off, because it's not going to happen. It's an impossibility. And so yeah, so I, the times where I feel the most connected is when I'm out in nature and I'm just walking for the sake of walking, and I'm smelling for the sake of smelling, and seeing for the sake of seeing, and there's no destination in sight, even though eventually the hike will be done, but I'm not waiting for that moment. You know, I'm not bummed out because that moment's coming. You know, it's just and like I said, it's like letting go, and to me that's, you know, being in the moment. And um another thing that you said that really resonated with me as well was the, and Stacy kind of touched on to it as well, but was the not having to go out to ascend. You know, we're in these bodies for a reason. You know, we have these minds for a reason, we live these lives for a reason. And why are we trying to escape those things to try to get more connected with the divine that put us here in the first place? You know, so it was, for me, it was just, you know, like I said, I was just absorbing and listening to everything, and those are kind of the notes and the, you know, the big things that came in through me. But I think it is just really cool, and I really love your take on it, that yeah, it's not about leaving, it's about getting deeper in, you know. So I don't know, I just thought that was really,
No, it's great, your feedback. Thank you. It's ironic, isn't it? The divine seems to work with that divine sense of humor and those ironies, like the examples you just gave. And it's funny when you were talking about, like, okay, so what spiritual techniques am I getting? This reminds me of one of my younger brothers, talking about using meditation to deal with fear and anxiety, and watching himself then rely on meditation as the key, and the need. If he didn't meditate, he would then become anxious. Like using meditation as a tool for a specific outcome. It's so Western, and it's really funny because it's so ego mind too. I'm doing this with this objective in mind, and then you're dealing with the ego mind from an ego mind perspective. So it's still all just about the mind, right? So that let go, that allowing, you know, all of that's where we now step into more of the divine, the flow, the heart, the spirit. Nature is a great way to do that too. So it's also possible when you hear your mind saying, what spiritual tool, now that I have so many to choose from, am I going to go to solve this or deal with this this negative feeling or uncomfortable feeling? Another choice is acknowledge it. Okay, I hear you. Now I'm talking more if it's a thought, not necessarily a feeling. So if it's a thought, okay, I hear you. Just talk back to it. This is Tibetan Buddhist techniques, but it's also behavioral psychology, cognitive behavioral psychology. Talk back to it. What if that's not even true? So then you don't have to have a bunch of tools that you need to rely on, because that's why you go to your spiritual tools. I mean, it's also about having fun. That's why I use the air horn. I mean, that's a great measure for a good mentor or teacher in the spiritual world, really, is their sense of humor. If they have a sense of humor, that kind of proves they've done some work on the ego mind to, you know, quiet down the seriousness that the ego mind is so resplendently rolling in all the bloody time, you know? And part of that seriousness is, this is a problem, I have to fix it. What if it's not? And then if it's a more embodied feeling that you're uncomfortable, you're not feeling up, there's something that you need to pay attention to inside and listen to, sit down and write. Sit down and talk to it. What are you trying to tell me? What do you want me to know? Put your hand on your lower belly. Go out in nature. Ask, you know, hey, guidance, talk to me. What is it that I'm seeming to want to avoid? Or what are you trying to tell me with this uncomfortable feeling? You go either, what I'm saying is both of those examples, go in, address it without having to fix it with spiritual tools. Because that's still the ego mind being the ego mind. The spiritual tools that are good to uplift us and helping us to feel happy and joyous, not just as like ways to come out of anxiety and fear. And we've been framed it in the West. You brought this up. Both of you did, like in the yoga studios. When I came back, I asked my yoga teacher in India, in the shala, I'm like, what do you see us Westerners mess up the most when we go back to the West with yoga? So in the typical Asian inimitable indirect style, he says to me, after a couple of moments of thought, anger stored in the hamstrings. That was his response. Okay, Lily, thanks. I got to work with that. But I mean, both went, okay, I get it. And so then I came back here, and the first yoga studio I worked at, she had me come in almost like the spiritual yoga teacher. Even though I'm trained in Ashtanga and I'm a personal trainer, Ashtanga is the most athletic version of them all. And by the way, the guy who created hot yoga isn't even allowed in India anymore. because it's not meant to be just a workout. The body postures are one of the 8 limbs of yoga.
Mhm.
The mind and working with the consciousness are 5 of the 8 limbs. The breath work you started the show out with, pranayama, is one of the limbs. So when this woman had me be in her more Pilates-based studio, which I also taught and did, the spiritual component of teaching the Ayurvedic component and the chakra component to in a yoga teacher training, when they would happen. So I was tired of that. And I went to a new, more spiritual yoga studio. But the idea that yoga is actually opening a chakra, every pose is built around opening the chakras. That's why you leave feeling, if you're not doing hot yoga or a workout, that's why you leave feeling refreshed and more balanced, because you just opened up chakras. So again, it's that idea of I'm using this for an outcome, and I'll do that too. Like I won't, like the idea of when people go to a yoga studio, I will go to a restorative yoga class. I will let myself take this restorative yoga class, and you end up in the one that's the flow, the vinyasa flow, so that you get in the workout for the results of the cut and the muscles. I'm guilty of that. You know, like this can't be as useful. What do you mean relax? I don't have a goal in mind. Oh wait, relaxing is the goal. Yeah, but that's a waste of time. Let me get something done.
Well, and I think that is also our Western culture of doing, you know, and being more active, because we, you know, resting, that's, you know, too yin for like a lot of people. And so we're
I'll sleep when I'm dead. That
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah. And so it's really, important to look at that. Like what does our body really need? Not what does our mind need? Because our mind is going to tell us, you know, a different thing every time, you know, but what does our body truly need? And so you mentioned just yoga for doing, you know, opening up the chakras. And, you know, I think that's a great practice to do. I actually went through my yoga teacher training a couple of years ago as well, just because I wanted to dive deep into that and bring it into my psychotherapy practice. But I'm wondering, are there certain tools that people can use? Like, so there's yoga, there's, what other things do you recommend that people can use to say clear their chakras on a daily? Because it sounds like that's the practice, is doing it on a daily basis so that they can continue to upgrade. I think, if someone had some tools, what would you recommend for that?
So what I have seen work is my chakra attunement audio series, frankly. This is not a marketing plug. It's answering a question.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Let's hear it.
So it's on my website, there's the Chakra Attunement audio series, and you can look at the key traumas, the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual causes of blocks for that particular chakra, and self-assess. Underneath each of those self-assessment tools is a little 2-minute clip of me doing a clearing and activation for that particular chakra. People have bought that chakra series and have continued to use it now 8 years after it was created and still get results from it. So if you want not only to clear, and just today, again, right in between the last interview and this interview, somebody in my signature program, Magic Manifestation and Money Flow, using the chakra series, she said, Dr. Alison, I'm finally having it happen. I'm finally hearing new things on the chakra MP clearing and activations MP3s. And it's one of the most fascinating phenomena to this work. I love finding this out because it's proof of the blockages don't allow you to hear or see certain possibilities. But then once we've cleared the layers above it, now all of a sudden you've been listening to the same bloody MP3 for days, for 30 days. And now all of a sudden you're hearing it. It's always been on there. It's so fun. I've had so many times people said, Dr. Alison, has this always been on here? But you're finally ready to hear it. So you can observe the phenomena at play that I teach about yourself, and then start to have a whole new level of understanding.
So as you're working through that, you're working through the layers as well. So each layer might be released in a different way, and then you finally hear what you need to, or finally experience what you need to.
But activations too, like the allowing, the receiving, all of that I've been talking about is the 4th chakra. If you want to empower your ability to co-create, it's the 5th chakra. You can go to the series and see it on my website, but it's not just clearing though, it's also activating the capacities at each chakra. Like my second book's title is Vibrational UPgrade Conspiracy for Your Bliss. That 3rd chakra, that beautiful yellow one right above your head, it's joy is there, inner child is there, the aspect, as I've already said, for manifestations there, it's the power to go out and manifest. That chakra gets happier and more open and activated if what we're manifesting out in the world brings us joy. That chakra doesn't have so much health and is more closed down, when what we're focusing on manifesting out in the world does not bring us much joy. Another way to look at that is we are designed to be happy with our day-to-day life in our job, in our work. And if we're not, we're going to not maybe necessarily have such a strong digestive tract, because that's where the third chakra is, at the beginning of the digestive tract. We may have gastric upsets. We may burp a lot. We may be more anxious. We may be less childlike and playful and joyful, which is more obvious. So it's not just about, the focus always tends to be like on, there's something I have to get rid of, there's something I have to clear, there's something I have to fix, there's this whole level of like, we're designed for bliss. Our systems, our God-given systems, are divine to help show us how to thrive. And it's almost like, I seem to be doing this work to help people like get out of the way of that.
Absolutely. And so that sounds like a really just beautiful process. So, and we will definitely put your links in the show notes as well. So if anyone needs to, so they can access that. Sounds like a really powerful system. I'm wondering.
Hold on a second. Let me give you one yoga pose that I think is helpful in asking you the question that you asked. I love the reclining goddess pose. It's a really good one to teach allowing. So the reclining goddess pose is feet are, your legs, you're laying down, your legs are out to the side and your feet are touching at the soles. So your legs are forming a diamond. You're touching your shoulder, you're rolling your shoulders back on the floor. So your back is flushed against the mat and your arms are out as if in corpse pose. So you could also, to go to work with hip opening in the sacral area, which is that second chakra, I have the right to feel the way I feel, but the pose itself really induces allowing, is apply gentle pressure, because guys especially they have a harder time getting their knees closer to the floor. So if you have pillows under each knee, that helps. But you could also apply gentle pressure on the inside of right above your knee, on the thigh muscle more than on the knee. And just gently guide that area open even more. It's a real tender area for people, and there's so much quieting that happens from that, as well as opening and the allowing. So it's a really good one to use.
That sounds like a really powerful pose. And I know, so many people have so many hip problems and like tight hips. And so there's, my understanding would probably be that there's a lot of emotion stored there in a lot of, people. And so, yeah, that sounds like it would release that too, as well as bring in the receiving. I love that.
That's the sacral chakra, the right to feel the way you feel. Usually the last one to clear.
It's usually the last one to clear. So
usually the most stubborn. Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Absolutely.
Really.
So I'm wondering if you would be so willing to lead us through an activation process. Let us experience this firsthand.
Okay. Yes. So those, while I talk, I'm going to be intuiting. I already have a sense, because there's been somewhat of a theme, what this clearing activation is going to be for. Please don't be driving. Please don't be having an elderly parent or a young infant to care for. You're going to space out possibly. You're also possibly going to feel twitching in your feet or your hands. You may feel electricity. You may get a pain as the block clears and life force is able to get through a chronically blocked area. You may yawn. You may knock out and go to sleep. You may feel nothing at all. All of that is fine. It just depends on where you're at with the spectrum. And if this doesn't apply to you at like a clearing level, then we're going to be more activating these capacities in you. So the light has that intelligence of its own. It knows what you need and what you don't, and it can work for each of you individualized. It's the beauty of it all, via the creator. There's something I'm sensing around more of that, less fixing and problem solving and more allowing for your own innate brilliance. How does that feel to you both?
Feels good.
Um, Yeah, it's that's actually something that I've been struggling for a while now, is to, give myself permission to kind of be my brilliant self. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I intuited that. It wasn't just me going into thoughts. The problem solving, we talked a lot about the fixing. And it's interesting. The interview I just got done with a man, and he too was having blockages around moving into allowing himself to shine more and be greater. We talked about that already. That's like the bottom line. People are just scared of their light.
I know with that myself.
So let's go more in that direction. The receiving and the allowing feels a little, this one instead, if I did more of the allowing yourself to be as bright as you possibly can, as brilliant as you possibly can, that's higher. It'll take you guys through more clearing than if I did the allowing rather than problem solving. So let me see what I can include. Okay, so I'm going to be silent for just a moment while I get into the requisite space to do this. So let's do it this way. What would it look like if you were allowing for the greatest version of you to run your life more? Anything and everything that does not allow for that, are you willing to burn up with the flames of transmutation? So you'd want to say yes out loud to invite the energy in.
Yes.
Yes.
Going right to karma. So any and all karma as appropriate that's in any way causing you to shut down or sabotage or step back from letting yourself shine and be as brilliantly and brilliant as you possibly can. Burning all of that karma up as appropriate. All free-floating thoughts and traumas that have in any way contributed to, created, or perpetuate you restricting or limiting how brightly you shine, how grand your life gets. How great you let yourself become, burning all of those free-floating thoughts and traumas. It's okay if you don't catch every word. The energy is still there. So all contracts, oaths, vows, across all lifetimes and timelines. Burning all of those up. All imprints from your parents in lineage. All conditioning in the trance of the masses. All at all levels of consciousness, beliefs, evaluations, judgments, expectations, and projections you have that are in any way limiting you stepping into more of your greatness and shining as brightly as you possibly can to create the grandest, most flourishing life now, burning it all up now. Anything and everything that inhibits or limits or restricts that with the flames of transmutation. Some of you may want to inhale and exhale, nostril breathing only. Shift some more of that energy that's and called up. So I'm seeing a lot of tightness around the throat and the neck getting cleared. Some stuff around the third chakra, power center. Injury to inner child, I'm seeing. Fear. Just raw fear in the face of some threat. It's getting cleared. There are also contracts I saw. May have been from a religious lifetime. Vow of austerity, vow of poverty. Some kind of limiting thing you've signed in another lifetime. That's some of what I'm seeing clear. It's a lot. Back of the heart is now opening. Sacral in the front. Some of you may want to shake out your feet, like flip your legs, then shake out your feet to allow some more of that energy down and through. I'm going to go ahead and activate the upgrade now. So any and all latent keys and codes and ancient wisdom within you, inherent talents within you, may all blessings and support possible to bring this all into alignment for your highest possibilities and your highest potential to be realized. Activating the upgrade now. So you guys come on back when you're ready. There's a lot more that goes on than it seems.
I felt that.
Yeah.
Such a very powerful energy. I felt just some clearing, some releasing, and then just like my vibration just felt like it expanded
Excellent.
outward. Yeah.
A lot more happened afterwards too. And some of you may want to listen to that, like this one clearing. Daily.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah,
Love it.
my third eye's vibrating right now.
Cool.
So I definitely felt that. Yeah, I felt a tightness in my solar plexus area pretty much the entire time. That's starting to fade now, but yeah, I just feel a little right up there on the third eye.
Opening.
Yeah. And it always seems to me though, whenever I work with chakras, the first one to open always seems like it's my third eye, because I always feel warmth or vibration there before any other place.
So some people are more clairsentient. Intuitive information comes in through feeling, sentience. Some people are more clairvoyant, seeing. Some are more clairaudient. So you might be more heavily the clairvoyance. That might be your primary power, but they tend to be a spectrum, and we can access all of them. Just if we have one strong one, it doesn't mean we don't have the others.
Right.
So your solar plexus, I knew one of yours, it felt to me like it was both of you with the inner child. You asked about something about your power, like how do you let yourself step into more of your greatness? Well, that would hit the third, because that's the power center. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so it's good that you felt the contraction. So really what you may want to do to activate it even more rather than only clear it is listen to that again. I don't want to say you just only cleared it, but the contraction shows clearing and then it released. So there was also the activation received, but if we have more clearing to do, it seems like there's a little bit less room for the activation. I don't want to say we get no activation, but if you listen to it, it'll help further along. Maybe you'll go into contraction for the next 5 times, you'll listen to it. And then by the 6th time, there's a totally different response.
And peeling back those layers.
Yeah.
Continue to make room for that, the activation, the new energy.
You look different.
I do?
Yeah, you do. Does he look
In-
different to you, Sam?
In what way?
Softer,
Brighter? Softer?
brighter, softer, and like a little more like a little girl, like more.
Oh.
In not that you didn't look pretty before, but like you look prettier now. Your cheeks are fuller. Your
I was
hair.
I was gonna say that you looks like you have whatever those beauty filters are for like your cell phones, you know what I mean?
Oh, really?
Because it does look like it's weird when you mention it, but yeah, it was softer in the face.
Oh,
I'm not saying
interesting.
that you have a rough face, but it's like you got a little bit more of like it's like a shine and like softer, almost like I want to say like an old French painting.
Oh,
The
interesting.
woman in an old French painting, how the features are just so soft. You know what I mean? Kind of
Mhm.
like that, if that makes sense.
Interesting. I wonder if there was like just the shift of energy did something.
Yeah, I mean, I see this a lot actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's happening. Yeah.
That's pretty
Wow.
wild.
Cool. But magic right before your eyes.
I guess so, right?
Yeah, and we can
Power of
also use it
television.
like a natural facelift.
Yeah.
Right, apparently so.
It's magical. And to think that, like, we really are sovereign beings, that we can create this for ourselves, right? And,
Yep.
we can, use your tools, and we can but we can, when we tune in and really shift and upgrade our energy, it's really, it heals so much.
Yeah, I wanna. There's so much possible, is what I hear you saying, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I find myself wanting to make it okay. Stacey, I hear you have a practice with patients, and that's beautiful. Obviously, I have a practice with clients, and that's beautiful. And I find that sometimes people stop themselves, and this is by no means marketing. The reality is that you can't get there alone, because they're
Right.
unconscious and subconscious. You do not consciously know what you need to clear. It's the nature of the game. So at some stage, getting help and support through that is going to speed up your results by at least a decade, depending on who you're working with, frankly. So I don't want people to feel like they should be able to do this all their own, or cheaply, if they just listen to the right videos and do the right yoga poses. If you took a certain chunk of change and invested in yourself with somebody who has enough testimonials to prove that what they do works, and they get your back looking at what you can't get to, that will jumpstart you. And so I just want to say that, because it feels like a lot of people there's so many people out there offering their work now, right? And so people may be withdrawn and not taking advantage of it, or maybe ashamed and think that they should be able to do it themselves. And that's the way yoga is presented. And there are patches when you just getting somebody else to get your back. Yes.
And I totally agree, because I don't think we're not meant to do things alone. And when we are working with somebody, they can see our blind spots.
Totally.
And so, it does help to have that energy, or the support of a worker, an energy worker, someone like yourself. And then there's those other things that, they can do on their own as well, in between.
Yep.
But I definitely agree. Yeah, like I just as a side note, I'm really excited. I'm actually going on Sunday. I'll be going to a Joe Dispenza advanced workshop for a whole week. And it's going to be nothing but like just meditating and going into the quantum field. And but it's his meditations have been like a real powerful source for me, along with all the other tools that I've used along the way to get me to where I am. So I know I've been supported by people like you, and just and that's been part of my journey. And so
Totally.
I think we really do need to absolutely have that support also.
And it's just a nice gift to give yourself too. Like when I have two different business support people, and they're not running energy medicine on me necessarily. They're instead like just helping me do some receiving. I mean, that's like such a great gift to me in and of itself. And if there's a great idea that comes through, excellent.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's sometimes where, I've gotten a lot of my downloads, is by being activated by other people's like things, symbols, or maybe their energy that working through me. And I, received a lot of different things that way. So absolutely.
Yeah, there's keys. Like if you hear that activation part, keys and codes and inherent talents and talents within you, I know that I've designed my system in such a way that I am asking whoever comes into contact with me has their keys and codes and inherent talents activated. So it's a part of my field. But you then walk away with it and then have this, you create the space to go out in nature or journal, write, or have a longer shower, although that wastewater, but whatever, to give you the expansiveness with which to allow the activations to unravel and then come to your consciousness and bring out into your life. Yeah, we each have it within us, and having somebody to get our back to bring it in, it's you get to have more choice, more possibility.
Absolutely. And just, also, I think other people, as they're opening up, they're in the spiritual awakening, they're stepping into their, their truth, or their, what they're being drawn to. And a lot of them are maybe into the healing field. And so it's, they're being called to help others heal where they've been before. And so we've got these healers that are, really connecting with each other and helping the world heal. And we're being called into our, our soul mission.
Yeah,
I think that's really important.
Yeah, I do too. It's a really key time right now. You brought up authenticity before, and soul mission is a part of that. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. So, Dr. Alison, tell our listeners how they can find you and what you're currently working on.
VibrationalUpgrade.com, Vibrational Upgrade Facebook group. You can come in there and get us there. I have released this year in January, the day after inauguration, the Dragon Master Creatrix Conversations with a Female Spiritual Teacher for These New Times. If you get the book, go to the title.com, meaning dragonmastercreatrix.com, and check out the bonuses that you can get there. When you submit your receipt number from Amazon, because that book's talking about the retreats I take people on and have been for a while, and attuning them to Vibrational UPgrade System and training them in it. And that's where my joy factor rises high nowadays. Because I've been a tour guide with Disney World. I've been a tour guide with the Autobahn, and turning people on to the things I turn them on to when we go to sacred sites, and how to work with the land and how to work with the energy in them and the land and the sites. It's really fun. So that
sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. So that book's about that, and that's what I'm up to.
Beautiful. And we will, of course, add all of those links into the show notes. So thank you, Dr. Alison, again, for being here with us today and sharing space to have this beautiful, conscious conversation with us.
It was lovely. I thank you for the visit. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look at Sam smile.
Yeah. And thank you for listening to our show. Stay tuned for more episodes being released on Mondays at 5:55 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And if you've enjoyed listening to our show, we would love a 5-star written review on iTunes. And of course, please share the love by sharing it with your friends. And if you want to support the work that we're doing, please consider making a donation to our show by visiting our Patreon website at patreon.com/BeTheLovePodcast. And until next time, love yourself, love each other, and love the world. We love you guys.
Love you guys. Take care, and we'll talk to you later.
We at Be the Love Podcast are honored to be supporting the Commodity Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization in Uganda that is working to build a school that will promote and support healthcare, education, skills development, feeding the hungry, human rights, and environmental defenders. Their goal is to work with young mothers and single mothers, street children, and vulnerable families who lack nurture as they guide them to become productive individuals, which will lead to a productive generation. Please see our show notes on how to become a donor, mentor, volunteer, or sponsor.
Thank you, Heather Lynn, for providing us with your beautiful song to accompany our show, Be the Love. If you would like to learn more about Heather Lynn and her music, please visit her website at heatherlynnmusic.com. And thank you, Chrissy Grace at Leading Edge Productions for the beautiful design and graphics.
And thank you for tuning in. And until next time, we are souls on the journey. And thank you for hopping on the Ascension bus with us. And remember, there is always a seat for you.